Did you know that there is scientific evidence that proves you do not have to be a victim of your genes? There are 1,000 case histories and a growing number of clinical studies that show that you can rewrite your genetic code. My guest today says that genes are merely blueprints and that it's the environment outside our cells that determines the genetic expression. And joining me is research scientist Dawson Church. He's the author of The Genie in Your Genes and Mind to Matter, and Dawson's latest book, Bliss Brain, outlines his journey through the most challenging part of his life to the most joyful part of his life, and how he used his life's work about the brain to survive. Welcome. You're amazing.
It's a delight to be with you again. Thank you so much.
Incredible. So thank you so much for being here. And I've known you for a long time. And what you've been through in the last 2 years would take most people to their knees. And I have never seen you so happy. Amazing.
Well, you know, you wonder how people really deal with their lives without meditation, without EFT tapping, without time in nature, without all of these tools we have that we now know have epigenetic effects on our bodies. When you have these, you're resilient. And that's the real payoff. You develop these things, you then can find the resources to really cope with the challenges of life.
You're absolutely a testament to all that you've ever researched. Now, Dawson lost his house in the Santa Rosa fire, devastated the house, flattened it, and the neighborhood. Could you tell us a little bit about your experience?
Well, it's called the Tubbs Fire, and it happened on the evening of October 9th, 2017. And my wife woke me up, and middle of the night, just felt this hand on my shoulder wake me up. I was really confused. I look at the alarm clock next to me, it says 12:45, and I look out the window, and there's this glow on the horizon. And I know that is not a good glow at 12:45 a.m. So I walk out onto the deck outside the bedroom, and I see this wildfire cresting the hill and sweeping down toward our house. And at that moment, the lights went out, the power went out,
Oh,
and I said to my
scary.
wife, "We're getting out of here right now." We literally sprinted through the house, grabbed the car keys, threw on half of our clothes, and then ran outside through a snowstorm of embers. It was like this blizzard of embers. The winds were gusting up 80 miles an hour, and so all these embers just peppering the trees and the house and everything. We ran to the car, and I began to wonder, as I ran out there to the car, am I overreacting? And then suddenly a tree went up behind our office buildings. We had a building that housed our office, we had a warehouse and a whole bunch of buildings on the property, and this tree just went up like a huge firework display. And then I realized,
explosion type of?
yeah, an explosion. I realized I'm not overreacting. We jumped in the car. As we drove out at full speed down our long driveway, my wife felt heat on her head and thought, why is it hot above my head? Looked up through the moonroof, and all the trees above her were on fire, all the branches above her. So we tore out of the development, got to the main road, and eventually after about 3 miles, knew we were safe. And
I mean, you didn't just have your house burned down, you escaped with your life.
yeah, moments before the fire.
Both of those things. And that's, most people, I'm saying, this would have been a lifelong trauma. Barely out of the ashes at this point, and you can talk about this so clearly. And it is incredible. Now, you lost, and it flattened the house. We have some pictures here of what it looked like before. And then you not only had your home, but you had other businesses on the property. And there were many people in the neighborhood that didn't get out.
It was so unfortunate because the fire was moving, according to firefighters, at the length of a football field every 3 seconds.
Oh my God.
And so people were trapped in their garages. When the power went out, they couldn't get out of the garage. They went back to get pets or treasured possessions. They died with their pets. 5,300 homes were destroyed that night, and 22 people died. And of those, 8 died within a 1,000-yard radius of our house because the fire was moving so fast. Only those who were able to run out like we did survived. And so it was one of those really, just disorienting events.
We've had to evacuate from fires as well. Living in California, this is unfortunately the state. And I remember the ashes, and everyone is evacuating at the same time, and every single place to stay is filled for miles. It just, you keep driving and it's still no vacancy, no vacancy. Where did you go that night?
Well, the funny thing is I had a conversation with a friend of mine called Bill about 20 years earlier, and we said, you know, if the zombie apocalypse ever happened,
Okay.
and if the economy collapsed, I needed a place to go, can I come to your house?
Oh.
So we had people we knew would
Wow.
take us in. So we went to Bill's house and just knocked on the door there, leaned on the doorbell, and he came to the door, and we stayed with him. But then his town was evacuated, so we then had to very hurriedly move even further
Again.
away from the fire sites.
Yes.
So we spent a few days very disoriented. We weren't like together the first few days. We were then the second day, some friends crept in past the National Guard that had sealed off the whole area, because I texted this friend who lived nearby and said, can you go and see if the house survived?
Oh, yeah.
And so that's when I got the photographs showing just pretty much just concrete slab, ash on top. The washing machine had melted, the refrigerator had melted, the cars had melted. All there was a stone chimney left. So that's when we knew the house was really truly gone.
Yes, it did take that confirmation, because you're still hoping up to
Yes.
that point. When you saw that photo, what did you and your wife do?
We were actually fairly calm, and what we did the following morning was the pivot point of the whole experience for us, because I woke up the next morning. The previous night, it had been very, very dark because of all the ash in the air. The sun set in this like big orange bowl because of all the ash. And we were feeling very, very strange and out of our bodies. And the next morning I woke up and I said to my wife, we need to do something immediately right now, and that's meditate. So we
Just
sat in
because
bed.
you knew, because
we knew.
of the brain, you knew what was going to happen with the setting in of the trauma?
I didn't know what would happen, but I did know we were not in our bodies. We were out of our normal selves. So we sat in bed, meditated, and we felt ourselves literally drop back into our bodies. We came to our senses again. And after that, Lisa, we began to joke about stuff we'd lost in the fire. Like, for example, I had these boxes of photographs from my mom who died 20 years ago. They'd been in the garage. I was supposed to sort through them, which I hadn't gotten around to for 20 years. And now it's like, well, I guess I can cross that off my list.
You
So
don't
we
want
were
to
joking
laugh,
about all
but
this stuff 2 days after the fire, but only after meditating and coming back into our bodies.
that had to have been a very powerful meditation that you did. I mean, it wasn't just sitting and closing your eyes and letting your thoughts run throughout your mind, right? You had a specific technique there that you used, right?
I developed a technique about 10 years ago called eco-meditation. We do it every morning. It's very powerful. It's basically meditation for failed meditators. If you can't meditate, if you have monkey mind, this will fix you. And it's just a very simple series of relaxation exercises you do, but it puts you into this very, very, very deep state. So we use that, and that put us there right away.
So I want to back up to your immense body of work here. You have, for probably 40 years, 30 years, been researching meditation techniques, various techniques, from a scientific perspective, though, right? Tell us a little bit about that and how you came to develop this particular technique.
Meditation is hard for people. They close their eyes and they are at the mercy of their thoughts. And when you have a lack of activity in your brain, there's a network that activates called the default mode network. Now, when you're doing something, when you're balancing in a yoga pose, when you're working on a spreadsheet, when you're composing an email, then you have another network called the task positive network engaged, the TPN. And so the TPN is just your brain at work, your brain doing its thing. But when you close your eyes, when you relax, when you do anything that doesn't require attention to a task, then the default mode network kicks in. And the default mode network has two big functions. One of them is to think about the bad stuff that happened in the past, and the other is to extrapolate that into the future. So there are two brain regions, the mid-prefrontal cortex and the posterior cingulate cortex. These two parts of the brain govern the default mode network, and they then become active when you aren't doing a thing. And this was really useful for your ancestors. So 100,000 years ago, your ancestors in a cave with scarce resources, thinking, obsessing about the tiger that almost ate him yesterday and the tiger that might eat him tomorrow. So the brain thought it was highly useful to default every bit of unused resource to thinking about the bad stuff in the past and how it might get you again in the future. So that's why our brains do this. But now there are no tigers. So all we think about is the
taxes.
memo, the tax, yeah, right. The insult, my neighbor parking his car in my parking lot 10 days ago. And that the default network obsesses about this all the time.
That's why meditation fails for most people, because instantly monkey mind is, it's more than that, it's the terror mind. It comes up and convinces you that something's going to go wrong at any moment. So when you try to get into a place of peace, which is the point of meditation, how do you bypass that or override it, or how do you do that?
So I was a struggling failed meditator for decades myself, and eventually I thought there has to be something easy you can do to deepen meditation. And so I developed a method that includes heart coherence, heart math type work, mindfulness, also neurofeedback and biofeedback, and also EFT, acupressure tapping, all in one package. Now, it isn't hard, but it keeps your TPN, your task positive network, engaged a little bit.
Okay.
But you're in deep heart coherence. You have a lot of alpha brain waves.
Okay.
And so you get into this very deep state without having to shut off your mind. It works really well.
So it's an engaged meditation.
It is. And you're counting your breaths, and you're relaxing certain muscles, and you're focusing on certain things over and over and over again, which gives your brain just enough to do to avoid the default mode network from kicking on.
Now, how many times a day had you been doing this prior to this incident?
I was meditating probably 5 days a week or so for quite a number of years before that. What happens then is you're wiring and firing. So you're starting to fire those neurons repeatedly every day. Now, when you fire them together, they wire together. So after a while, you have more neural material in your brain to govern this. In Mind to Matter, my book Mind to Matter, in chapter 1, I talk about one case study of a TV journalist who did an 8-week mindfulness program. And these researchers measured his brain volume very, very carefully before and after the 8 weeks. And in just 8 weeks, the emotion regulation circuit in the center of his brain that coordinates emotional regulation across the whole brain, that circuit grew by 22.8% in just 8 weeks.
The physical matter?
The physical matter, the volume of tissue in this part of the brain called the dentate gyrus grew by almost 23% in only 2 months. So you do that for 6 months, a year, 5 years. You now have all this hardware. It's not just software anymore. You've used the software of mind to create the hardware of brain. So when you have a fire or a divorce or lose your job or a financial crash, you don't just have a feel-good state to retreat to in meditation. You literally have millions of neurons and synapses that govern emotional regulation. So you don't fly off the handle, you don't overreact, you are calm, you are loving. Somebody says something annoying, and you just breathe and say, I'm so sad you feel that way. You don't feel as though you have to engage because you have this big chunk of hardware in your brain governing your emotional regulation.
Well, this is what we were talking about at the beginning of the show, of how your environment, which is your internal environment, can impact your genetic expression. It literally can. How much of our genes is actually hardwired genetics, and how much can we impact?
The current consensus is somewhere around 1585. So 15% of it is fixed. Like, I'm 6'5". I may shrink a bit as I get older, but I'm 6'5".
Yes.
I have gray eyes, so skin tone, all those things. That's the 15% that's fixed. The other 85% is being shaped dynamically by our environment. I drink some water, and then things happen in my body that are responding to the water. I eat some food. I'm in the sunshine. All these things are turning genes on and off.
So when you have a traumatic event that happens, such as a devastating fire that takes everything that you own, your brain and your cells could easily go right into the trauma. I mean, you know the effects of stress on cells. Can you share with us a little bit about the effects of cortisol and stress on the body.
I've done several clinical trials using cortisol as a marker. One of them was a triple-blind, randomized controlled trial published in the oldest psychiatry journal in North America. So high-level journal, rigorous design, triple-blind, randomized controlled trial, 84 people, and they were randomized into 3 groups. One got regular psychotherapy, one got EFT therapy, which includes tapping on acupressure points to calm yourself. The other got rest in a clinic. And we found that cortisol dropped a huge amount in the EFT group, and also anxiety and depression went down by twice as much as the other 2 groups. So you can literally regulate the genes that govern your production of adrenaline and cortisol purely with energy methods, with your mind, with meditation.
That is phenomenal. So the EFT, which you've done extensive research on, are various energy points in the body, meridians, right? That they usually have been explained or shown in ancient Chinese medicine and through acupuncture techniques. These are these meridians where the energy flows through, right? These are the ones that you center on when you're doing the tapping? Yeah.
You focus on the meridians, you tap on meridian endpoints, and then you think about the bad stuff. So you're deliberately turning on those memories of being assaulted as a kid, not letting things work out for you as a teenager, social pressure, failures, job stresses, marital stresses, relationship disappointments. You're focusing on all those things. We've now worked in our nonprofit with over 20,000 veterans,
Wow.
And we find that their symptoms of flashbacks and nightmares, all of those things that so haunt them, drop by over 60% after 6 EFT sessions. So the EFT, 60%. Yeah.
Wow.
They walk in there with high levels of PTSD. They walk out after 6 sessions free of most of those symptoms. So these are really effective methods. So you think about the bad stuff, but then you tap, and those acupressure meridian endpoint stimulation techniques then produce a shutdown of the emotional brain. So you still remember being blown up in Vietnam, or the IED in Iraq, or whatever it might be. You remember that thing. You just no longer have the emotional tag of it triggering the fight or flight response.
Now, these EFT, emotional freedom technique, have you been using this since the fire, and did you use it when you went back to the scene?
Oh, every day.
You do?
Every day. I tap almost every day. I tap to regulate my body. I tap to be more happy. I tap to reduce any of the stress of bad dreams. I use it every day.
This photo here that we have.
I used it on the way here to the studio.
Oh, you did? You probably hit some traffic. This photo we have here of the Buddha in the ashes is absolutely beautiful. Did you take this photo?
A friend of ours took that.
Wow.
And I wrote a blog for the Huffington Post about this because at the time I was blogging for the Huffington Post. And that image moved me so much, Lisa.
Yeah.
And that blog post, The Saint in the Ashes, I thought symbolized the whole experience, because I wrote in the blog post that, this Buddha, by the way, that Buddha is a stone Buddha, and years ago, many years before the fire, it had been stuck in the back of a closet in the office. And then we stored various things in front of it, and it had been forgotten about for the best part of 10 years. And so when everything burned down, and the desks were all burned up, and all the filing cabinets were gone.
In the closet.
In the closet, the Buddha sits there, serene. And so I wrote in my blog that compassion can't be burned, love can't be burned, kindness can't be burned. Who we are as human beings, it endures. The fires around us can rage, but we, at our core, if we know who we are, all of those things that are truly important, the love, the compassion, the kindness, they're still there.
And it's not hard.
Not hard.
It's not. And there's certain centers in the brain. Is there a compassion center of the brain?
There are very different parts of the brain that light up in people who are compassionate and loving. And so there are several circuits that all work together. But one of those is the compassion circuit. And we find that in people who are able to practice compassion, the happiness circuits light up. And what shuts down is the selfing circuits. The circuits about I am me. The circuits that think about myself. Like I'm thinking about myself now, thinking, gee, did I have a good haircut last week? And am I wearing the right color? And will I be late? And all these, all those parts that construct the self. In the compassionate meditator, all those parts of the brain shut down, and the parts that are happy, that are joyful, that feel connected light up. Not only that, you have surges of hormones and neurotransmitters, hormones like oxytocin. Oxytocin is the bonding hormone. Oxytocin is the inner drug that makes a mother want to touch her child and the child touch the mother. And you have surges of these. But the proprioceptive parts of the brain shut down. The parts of the brain that locate your body in space and time. So now I'm sitting there, meditation, I have no sense of being a self, I have no sense of time or space, and I'm having surges of oxytocin, and so suddenly I'm in love with the universe.
Yes, and all humanity. And I
Yes.
remember the studies of the Tibetan monks that had the electrons on their head, and they showed it was a whole brain experience.
Yes.
That all areas of the brain lit up.
Yes.
And that's fascinating because to be in that state of compassionate awareness is when our brain really truly is at its optimum state.
It is. And the circuit that controls the default mode network gets bigger and bigger and faster in those meditators. So they can control that tendency to wander off into the wandering mind, into monkey mind,
Stinking
into thinking about the
thinking
self.
too.
Yes.
I mean and if you think about the negative thinking and the fear and those evidence-based fear thoughts, whatever you want to call them, it's got to shrink the brain because it's a very small part of the brain, isn't it?
In fact, in people with PTSD who have repeated flashbacks and nightmares, those parts of the brain that govern fear start to grow, and those parts of the brain that govern memory and learning start to shrink. And in extreme cases of PTSD, the memory and learning centers of the brain start to calcify. We actually have calcium deposits on those parts of our brain. And you want calcium in your bones, in your teeth. You
Not in your
do not
brain.
want calcium in your memory centers or learning centers. But that's what happens to people who are traumatized.
It actually calcifies in the brain as a memory.
Calcifies the hippocampus. Yeah.
And so you want to avoid that and train yourself out of it. And this is what Bliss Brain is. It's
Yes.
this whole brain thinking. So can we talk a little bit about your detachment? So you've had to detach from stuff and things and even your cats, the beautiful animals that you had to leave behind. Except for one who survived.
Yeah, we 2 weeks after the fire, we were amazed when this turtle that had been living in this muck that used to be the pond, I mean, all the beautiful koi we had died, but the turtle suddenly poked its head up through the top of the water, and there it was. So this mean-looking turtle.
This little red slider. Folks, they're very resilient creatures. But you have had to detach from an enormous amount of stuff and things. Can you tell us about that experience and what it feels like to be free of all of your possessions?
Well, my wife and I make up stories, often blatant lies about stuff. Like, for example, I had a collection of Victorian books from my father. So they were from like the 1800s, and they were beautiful, big old family Bible. I had a French armoire that was brought across to the U.S. before the American Revolution in the 1700s. So I had these things. So like, I just went on eBay, and I bought myself another set of books that looked like that. And I told myself, oh, that's the set of books I used to have. So I know, so bad things happen sometimes, and you just make up stories and tell yourself the good side of them, how I'm resilient, how it's just stuff, what truly counts now, and then we can replace all of those things.
Well, one by one, you replace it as you need it.
And you also decide if you want it or not. Like, one of the really odd ideas is we talk about that we want people to rebuild and we want them to recover, but the whole system is set up to have you try and rebuild. Like, for example, if you had a General Electric 16 cubic foot refrigerator and you go buy another one just like that, the insurance company gives you the full price. If you don't buy that, they give you the discounted value, which is a small fraction of the price. So they have you go around buying all your old stuff. And my wife and I woke up one day and said, we don't want to do this. We're recreating our old lives. So we quit buying anything. And it's powerful then to reinvent yourself. You don't recover from a disaster. You want to learn mastery and leap to a whole new level and allow that to propel you to a new vision of who you are when you lose the old vision. So that we want to do far more than recover and just get back to where we were before. You want to use this as a springboard to new growth.
To recreate. You don't want to
Yeah.
recover, you want to recreate.
Right.
Yes, the systems can get very burdensome to go through. Maybe you didn't videotape it, or maybe you did, and you would have to go through every single frame and find out your possessions and list. That, I understood, draining.
Took about 400 hours. So there we were, trying to recover, trying to put our lives back together, me still working 80 hours a week sometimes in my real job, and then having 10 weeks to try and inventory stuff with the insurance company.
There's a time limit
it was
on
insane.
it?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was crazy.
Now, back to the working piece of this. You had to make a decision whether or not to go. You were booked through several months of speaking engagements and traveling to various countries, and you could have easily and had a very valid excuse not to do that.
I thought about that long and hard in the days after the fire. I thought, I'm supposed to be in Toronto in a week, keynoting a psychology conference and teaching a week-long trauma training to therapists.
A week-long trauma training.
A week-long trauma training to therapists a week after the fire. And I thought, do I go or do I stay? But for one thing, after you've lost everything, there is nothing you can do. You can't fix anything or do anything. There is nothing to work on. So
Very
that
final.
was one thing. The other thing was we had friends and family rally around and really take care of my wife. And I thought, you know, she's taken care of. This is my job. I'm going to go. So I stood up there and did my keynote speech, did my week-long trauma training, and it was
What was that like?
trippy.
Yeah. I mean, you were in the process of processing.
I was, yeah. But the other thing is I got a lot of great therapy from the people there.
Tons
so,
of love,
yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
But you made a choice. Now, there's a very important piece here, though.
Continuity.
Yes.
What am I doing on
Not only
Earth?
that.
What was my mission on Earth?
Yes.
And
Yes.
healing and love is my mission. And so that was before the fire, was after the fire. And that was my expression of affirming my mission, was to go on that trip. I think I left 3 days after the fire.
Unwaveringly.
Yeah.
Now, there have been a series of miracles that have happened as a result of this. Can you share some of those with us and why the miracles are more than that? I mean, they really are a testament in your faith and trust that you will always be guided.
Well, in Mind to Matter, there's a whole chapter on synchronicity and the science behind synchronicity. And it turns out that there's a ton of science that shows that if we are in tune with the universe, we're in tune with other people who are in tune with the universe, and we're in tune with nature. And you can put yourself in that state when you're in flow. Also in Bliss Brain, I have studies showing that when people are in that state of flow, they are 5 times more productive. Not 5% more productive, 500%
Oh, wow.
more productive. A DARPA study, the Defense Research Agency, showed, one of the pieces of research showed that when you're in that flow state that meditation puts you into, you are able to solve complicated problems, and your ability to solve complex problems goes up by 490%. So you're in these elevated states, and you now have challenges, but you can solve them, and you're in synchronicity, you're in flow. So we found that in all kinds of ways, things just flowed for us after the fire. Part of it was a house. Insurance companies were trying to find housing for people, and it was already a very tight market, and now suddenly 5,300 houses have burned up in one night. And they couldn't find housing for all those people. They're putting them in cities an hour or two away. And so my wife said, you know, we've always wanted to live in this town called Petaluma. We know one person there, her name is Marilyn. Give Marilyn a call. So I called Marilyn, and Marilyn said, I've been thinking about moving because I have a consulting job 2 hours away, and I'm not commuting, so if your insurance company will rent my house for you to stay in, that'll give me the money to rent the house I really want to be in 2 hours away near my consulting job. So with one phone call,
Wow.
synchronously,
So that's beautiful because
had a
you had
house.
to take the action piece,
yes.
but you also had to set an intention of some kind. I mean, it wasn't like you sat there and visualized what you needed. You didn't have time to do that. You just picked up the phone and it started working through you. Yeah, that's great, a great piece as well, because you can't just sit and meditate a house to appear. You have to do the action piece
Right,
around that.
you do. But you guide it into what the action is. And the action is often not intuitively where you think it's going to lead you. So you might get one little piece of information. Do this one thing, call Marilyn. You have no idea it'll lead to a house. But you just follow your guidance that far. Then your guidance brings you that far, and that far, and that far.
You're doing the practice every single day, right? Still to this day?
Absolutely, yeah. And you feel your brain changing. You feel yourself becoming less anxious. Things that used to trigger you and upset you before don't trigger you. Like right now, we get so many people in our workshops, our live workshops, and our online courses, and they're worried about the world, they're worried about the government, they're worried about the corporations, they're worried about all these things. And I'm not saying don't worry about those things or that there aren't real problems out there. Those are all real problems, but where are you tackling them from? Like our Veteran Stress Project, 10 years ago, the Veterans Administration had a complete prohibition on energy therapies, no energy therapies in the VA.
Wow.
And so other people were angry about that, and they were protesting against that and so on. And I said, let's just set up our own nonprofit outside the VA and work with the veterans there. So we did. And for 10 years we did that, and eventually the VA said, oh, you have 7 randomized controlled trials, you've treated 20,000 people, we'll now approve your method within the VA. So you take intelligent action when you aren't all riled up. So we have these real problems. We have climate change, we have weaponized artificial intelligence, we have food quality and water quality issues. We have all kinds of problems. If sea levels rise as far as they're predicted to do this century, it'll displace around 40 million people. This is a huge crisis. So all of these are real problems. And we can find intelligent solutions if we're 5 times as productive, if our brains are 5 times as good at solving these complicated problems. And we have millions of people doing this. We now have the brain power to solve those problems.
Have you ever done mass experiments where there's multiple people meditating or staying in that state of flow at the same time?
There have been a few of those. Yeah, they show things like
Fascinating.
influences on the crime rate of a city. Yeah.
It's really powerful. Now, is this your daily practice every single morning?
It is my addictive practice because in Bliss Brain I talk a lot about the neurochemicals of bliss. One of the main ones is called anandamide. And the word ananda is the Sanskrit word for bliss. That's why it's called anandamide. And so it is a molecule that docks to the same receptor sites in the brain as THC, which is the active molecule in marijuana. So when you meditate this way, you have this flood of oxytocin. You feel really good and bonded to the universe. Oxytocin triggers the production of anandamide and nitric oxide. Nitric oxide enlarges the capillaries in your brain and makes you alert. Anandamide is the bliss molecule. It, again, docks to those THC molecule receptor sites and makes you feel really, really, really good.
I can see that.
You also have a rise in serotonin. And psilocybin, magic mushrooms, docks again to serotonin receptor sites. So now you're sitting there, you're having this flood of a psilocybin-like experience as serotonin rises. Dopamine system is engaged in cocaine and heroin and smoking addiction. So now you basically are sitting there meditating. You're having this flood of anandamide and nitric oxide and serotonin and dopamine and oxytocin, and you just feel absolutely wonderful. People are so addicted.
Well, that is in Bliss Brain, and that's coming out very soon. And you can find all of this. What is the website to find everything? Is it?
Mind Matter is a good one. So just mindmatter.com is where you can download the meditations for free. Yeah.
There's also a GoFundMe campaign there, by the way. If you research on GoFundMe, the Fire Recovery Fund, you'll see that if you just put in EFT Fire Recovery Fund, there's also a way to support Dawson and his research post-fire. And people have been very generous to do that, because I know that you had a whole research study that burned, unfortunately, that wasn't electronically...
Wasn't backed up, yeah.
Backed up yet. So there's a lot more to go through, but what you've been able to validate is what these insurance companies and organizations need in order to bring these programs into the public, and to really be impactful and helpful. And this isn't for, just fire victims. These are people that have anxiety, generalized anxiety disorder, that have depression, that have even ADD, ADHD, so many even circumstantial issues. If there's someone going through a trauma in their life, a divorce, a breakup, a health crisis, whatever it is, these absolutely are, as you said, better than drugs.
Yeah, the
So there's
research
no
shows
reason
that
to
these
numb
methods
out.
really are valuable for mental health issues like anxiety, depression, phobias, and PTSD. But the great thing about that is when you lower cortisol, when you are having an effect on mood in that way, and it's like you balance your serotonin and dopamine in your brain, it has a big effect on your body. Like people's pain goes down by an average of 68%. We have other research on things like psoriasis and fibromyalgia. These autoimmune disorders get much, much better.
Wow.
And again, you're treating them by means of mental health. You're reducing anxiety and depression, then that starts to move the needle on all the physical issues like pain and autoimmune disorders.
So let's take, for instance, the hurricane that has just devastated the Bahamas. Could you create a project where people could listen to this or download it for free, or find a way that they could actually help themselves to recover through mindfulness training?
I think you can recover, and it really is a help, and it also is valuable to do it before a disaster. Because if you've done that, then you are resilient. The people who haven't yet built all that neural tissue, who don't have the experience, who don't have an anchor biologically in this, have a much harder time stabilizing after a tragedy. But you want to start building early. And then when you have a tragedy, you have all of that stuff built. After the fire, too, we had a big financial crash because we had huge expenses and we weren't able to meet them. So I had to withdraw all of my savings from my retirement accounts and pay penalties and stuff like that. And that was difficult financially. But again, we were totally resilient. I remember one team meeting where one of our team members was saying, "Dawson, how can you be out there being this inspiring, inspirational speaker behind the scenes, and you're having to clean out your retirement account to make payroll?" And it's like, what else do you do? You just stay in that flow, and it's powerful. So we had that sense of resilience in all of these dimensions: physical health, financial, putting our lives back together, our relationship.
Wow.
It's powerful when you have that. So you want to have it after a crisis, but you want to start to develop it before you need it.
I understand that you had one of the biggest opportunities of your life happen post-fire, where you got the opportunity to speak on Tony Robbins' stage.
When I first saw this email come in my inbox saying, "Would you like to speak with Tony Robbins?" I thought it was a prank.
Yes.
Because I'd had an intention of speaking with Tony Robbins, and Mind to Matter, of course, is all about manifestation, about how our thoughts become reality. But I'd had this thought about speaking with Tony Robbins, but I'd never taken any action whatsoever, and suddenly in my inbox was an invitation to speak on stage with him, and so I said yes, of course, and it was real. Yeah.
That's incredible. Tell me about that experience.
Well, I flew out to Abu Dhabi, where he was giving a conference to his one of his leadership groups, and I just really was thrilled to meet him, feel his energy, and also be eye to eye with somebody, because he's a tall guy. So finally, I was like hugging a guy my height.
So are you, yes. He's about 6'5", 6'7".
He's up there. Yeah, I think it's 6'7" or something. I'm 6'6", so yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And so you spoke on a stage and got to be around his energy and presence for a long time.
And it turned out he knew about the Genie, Your Genes, my book, and had known about it for many years, and was a real believer in these techniques.
Fantastic, fantastic. See what happens? I mean, so you are recovering, and is it a long process? Is it a constant process? Are you ever fully recovered from something like this? Any type of stressor?
Honestly, there are days when I feel a twinge of regret. Like I'll think about those books of my dad's, or about the cats or the pets we lost.
Yeah.
Or I'll look at.
I think about your cats. Oh.
Yeah.
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 And so it's not like I'm Mr. Spock, you know. You don't lose your emotionality. You don't lose your compassion. You have more compassion. What happens with this work, though, is emotions flow through you really quickly. They arise and then they subside. And great spiritual teachers have told us this, that you feel anger, you feel upset, you see that image on the news of the hurricane, and you feel such compassion. But you don't get bogged down there and stay there. And you don't believe your own story. When you feel resentment, or you feel anger, or you feel disappointment, you know this emotion has arisen, your cortisol is going up, your adrenaline is going up. If you sit around for a while, it'll go down again. In Mind to Matter, I have the primary research on how long it takes for your body to disassemble the cortisol molecule. And the answer is 20 minutes.
Really?
If you get pissed off at somebody, and then you don't open your mouth and say something hurtful or mean or thoughtless or reactive, and just sit around, keep breathing, in 20 minutes your body will take all that cortisol apart and it'll repurpose it for really good hormones like DHEA, your main cell repair hormone. And adrenaline, the magic number is 2 minutes. Sit around for 2 minutes, your adrenaline will be repurposed. Those molecules will be taken apart by your body, used for other things.
Now, is that with the meditation technique or?
Just generally
sitting?
speaking. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, really? If you don't react.
If you don't react.
But it does take this practice in order to have that resilience, that state, right? It really does take this practice. It's not hard though. What is it, 20 minutes?
Meditation is 20 minutes. The tapping is under a minute. So
It's incorporated in the meditation?
yes.
Okay, so speaking about the tapping and the EFT, you have a device that shows that these meridians actually do exist in the body. So this is great. This is kind of a little show and tell here. What is this device that you have? Tell me about it.
It measures the resistance and conductiveness on the surface of your skin. And so if there's a point, which acupoints are, that's highly conductive, that has low resistance, then it'll pick up that point. And so people look at these 2,000-year-old Chinese meridian charts and think, wow, this is some kind of exotic, subtle energy. It's not. It's measurable by science now very easily. And this little device over here is what can pick it up on your skin.
What is this?
Oh, galvanometer. It just picks up the charge on your skin.
Like
and
if you were to put it into an electrical socket, you would get the charge of that, right?
this doesn't work quite the same way.
Different,
This is its
okay.
own power source and is just to measure the charge on your skin without being hooked up to any power source. So,
Fascinating.
yeah,
And it's just measuring frequency, right?
it's measuring resistance. So,
Okay.
Yeah, how much
just said that,
resistance
sorry.
or conductivity. So think about a power cord plugging in an appliance. It has a rubber sheath on the outside, copper wire on the inside. Copper wire is very conductive, has very low resistance. The sheath on the outside has very, very high resistance, very little conductance. And so your skin has an average conductance, but at the center of an acupuncture point, it has very, very, very high conductance and very low resistance. So that's why it's measurable by a device like this.
Okay. And so when you're tapping on these meridians, this is how you move energy?
You balance the energy body
Okay.
by tapping.
Okay.
There's a blockage somewhere, the tapping tends to balance out that. So the acupuncturist will take your pulses, she'll find where your flows are obstructed, she'll put a needle in there that'll help free up those flows.
So if we measured the frequency on one of my acupuncture points and then I did a tapping on it, would the frequency change?
It often does.
Let's
Yeah.
try it. Let's
Yeah.
do it. Okay.
So
Fun.
there are meridians all over the body, and there are 14 of them, and there are about 300 acupuncture points. These are some of the points that we use in EFT. So I'm holding your hand here, so I'm making a circuit between the point and
Okay.
your skin. So you'll see it's right over there is where the point is. If I move a little ways away, there's much less of a signal.
Such a tiny amount, too.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, you have to be right on the points
Yeah.
to detect them. And then again, I know there's a point right around here. It's right there. And then
Okay.
the ones we use on the face are, like this one over here, on the side of your eye. Right over there.
Wow.
A big signal there. And not much of a signal if I move it away. And there's one under your eye, pupil of your eye over here. One over there.
Okay, now if I were
One
to
over
tap,
here. Right there. So again, they're tiny, and you have to be right on them. And then we tap on those points, on 7 of those points, and that tends to balance our energy system.
So now if I tapped here on the side, close to the side of the eye, and tapped here, and then...
It's just feeling the difference in your
Yeah.
body. So this will measure where the points are,
Uh-huh.
but then how you feel that's when you know your energy is coming back into balance. So if you know high anxiety, for example, we've done a bunch of studies on students with test anxiety or people with various kinds of high anxiety, and they tap, and in about 10, 15 minutes their anxiety goes way, way, way down. They feel better.
It's fantastic. It's better than medication or the side effects that come with that.
Well, again, the average reduction in pain for tapping is 68% in just a few minutes of tapping. So no side effects. Very effective.
That's incredible. I'm not telling people to get off medication. I'm just basically saying that this is a nice way to test to see if you can reduce your anxiety.
Totally.
Yeah. And now you teach people
and look at what natural methods you can use to reduce anxiety and heal yourself. And also what non-invasive methods, what energy methods you can do. People tend to go straight for material solutions to their material problems. We can solve many of our material problems with energy methods. And the book is Mind Matter is full of stories of people. Like one woman who just wanted to, she had stage 4 metastasized cancer, and she began to do energy work with herself and visualizations. No medical treatment at all. And within 6 months, she was totally healed. Another woman,
My goodness.
detailed case history in 2 months, was healed of metastasized cancer. People have had financial problems, relationship problems. All of these things change by working at the level of energy and frequency.
So it's clearing, but what about the manifestation part of it, the mind to the matter? And we make things matter with our mind. So what's the difference there? You can clear or you can create?
You can create. And so, for example, when I calm myself down, I know I am creating DHEA molecules. I'm uncreating cortisol molecules purely with my awareness. But one of the coolest sets of experiments is on this wonderful substance all around us called H2O. And research shows that when we, as human beings, have intentions and bless water or put intentions into water, it literally changes the molecular structure of the water molecule. So we have this one big oxygen atom, 2 little hydrogens. When healers, when intenders, in this coherent state of flow, then have the intention of putting healing energy into that water, it literally changes the bonding angle of the water molecule. So
you really can impact the field. You can
outside of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if you're looking to impact a situation in a positive way, I think you can really only use this in a positive way, then you can truly start to intend and impact the field around you. Creation or manifestation or joy or healing. And this has been measured as well.
You know, there are people who you just walk up to them and you feel good.
Yeah.
And other people you walk up to them and you don't feel good. And chapter 2 of Mind to Matter is all about this phenomenon called emotional contagion. And emotions, it turns out, are as contagious as the flu. And so there are happy people, and you walk up to them and you just feel happier.
Yeah.
And it turns out that if you have a happy neighbor, you're 34% more likely to be happy than if you have an unhappy neighbor. And then you pass that along to your neighbor and they to their neighbor. So happy people are affecting others and producing emotional contagion 3 layers out. So it's powerful.
What if you don't have a happy neighbor? Can you impact their level of happiness?
You can certainly be more happy yourself.
You can try.
Then,
you can try.
yes.
All right, well, there's a segment here that I love to do called the Aware News, and it's a segment where I like to talk about current events and how it relates to your body of work in order to provide possibilities and solutions for a better world. And in this segment here, I want to talk about mass shootings. And we have at least 1 to 2 mass shootings a day in the United States. How can your work impact this phenomenon of the jumpiness or the level of fear that we're living in, and as a result, maybe lower these very difficult situations that we're in?
The way we start is with ourselves. If we become more peaceful, more centered, we become agents of positive emotional contagion all around us. We produce centering and positivity all around us. I'll give an extreme example. When my daughter was 12 years old, she was in school, and one day I asked her about how her day had gone, and she told me about various things that had happened to her during the course of the day. And I said, well, the first thing you did today was you ran out of your bedroom, ran up to me in the kitchen as I was making breakfast. You threw your arms around me and said, I love you, Daddy. So I felt better. And then you went to school, and you had a positive conversation with the bus driver, and with your friend, and with your teacher. And I realized that she had positively affected the lives of 12 people that day at the age of 12. So it doesn't take having the Gates Foundation
Yes.
to do it. So we do that, and then these emotional ripples go all around us. We also are much wiser about social action. So we take actions, but we take them wisely and appropriately. And so the world as a whole is improving dramatically. If you look at, for example, the level of
It's not what you hear in the news.
Not here in the news. Global wealth has tripled. The average human being is 3 times as wealthy as he or she was 30 years ago. Global wealth has gone up 100-fold since 1800. The lifespan of the average global citizen has doubled in the last century. Infant mortality, maternal mortality, all these things have been improving. Google searches for homophobic, racist, sexist words in the last decade have dropped by 80%.
Yes, that's
People are just not
fantastic.
into that anymore.
Yes.
So all of these trends are for human thriving, and those are just a few markers. There are thousands of those markers. Now, at the same time, a study of a word analysis of the New York Times found that in the last period since 1945, the number of times the New York Times uses words like positive or good or hopeful has been steadily declining. And the use of words like tragic and serious problems has been increasing. Same thing for another study of 130 countries of all media, that even as the world is becoming better and better and better, the media's reflection of it is getting worse and worse and worse. So don't believe that stuff. Look at the big picture.
If it leads, it bleeds, right?
There's a whole chapter in
If it
Bliss Brain
bleeds, it
about
leads.
this. Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
Yeah. So what were you saying?
There's a whole chapter in Bliss Brain about human thriving and about how we're in a period of unprecedented human thriving.
Well, that if you attract what you look for. You look for what you attract. It goes hand in hand. If you are looking for those statistics, you will find them. If you're looking for that the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer, you will find those. It's a matter of what you're searching for, and then you start to find more of it. It just happens all the time. And so if you're looking for those statistics, you will find them, and then you can create more of that good feeling by sharing them with other people.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the news doesn't do that.
No.
They create more of what's going to create more fear and what's going to raise that hit of dopamine in people and keep people watching the news. And the positive shows, and this one is one of them, it is harder to keep people's attention except when you have great, valuable information like you have today, and you do great demonstrations.
Well,
That's
see,
good.
This is what you have to do, because there is the media out there trying to get your attention, not just the news, but social media.
Yes.
And it wants your eyeballs, it wants your consciousness. And so what you don't want to do is wake up in the morning, and research shows that most people within 15 minutes of waking up have checked their social media. And that means you're now giving your consciousness to those advertisers and those sources. And now, rather than you having your own control over your own brain and your own mind, you're now handing that to somebody else. What you want to do instead, you want to wake up in the morning and tune to what I call in my books non-local mind. You close your eyes, you meditate, you lose your self-preoccupation, and you're absorbed into this amazing universe we live in. You feel one with it, you feel love, you feel kindness, you feel compassion, you feel the order of nature all around you, you feel wonderful. Now you've taken that precious commodity, which is solely yours to aim, and you've aimed it at that non-local mind and tuned into that. And now you're a downloader of information and intelligence and wisdom, all kinds of things you don't have access to at the level of your local mind. So you immerse yourself in the love that is present in non-local mind and the universe, and then you start your day, you launch your day with that energy and that impetus. Far better idea than devoting your attention to all those things from the outside that will not make you happy or feel love. So you want to start each day like that and anchor yourself in non-local mind. Then you become a loving and effective human being.
See, now that is a perfect way to wrap up the show. I thank you so much for leaving us with that state of being and to really have us lifted in understanding why we want to be in that universally connected state of bliss. It impacts our health, our relationships, those around us, helps us be resilient. It's absolutely, I think, essential.
And it's a choice. It's a choice we make every moment, which genes we turn on, which we turn off, by which thoughts we turn on, and which thoughts we turn off. So turn off the thoughts of stress and worry, turn on the thoughts of love, and you produce this whole cascade of positive neurochemicals in your body, positive brain growth, and resilience as you build all those brain circuits.
Absolutely, absolutely. It is your choice. We have this choice right here, and you can make that. And I think that leads. Well, thank you so much for sharing the possibilities of the human with us and everything that we needed to know about the brain and your incredible technique. And I'm so grateful that you and your wife and your family are safe and rebuilding and being resilient, and thank you for being an example of that to us.
I love doing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure is mine. And I'm so grateful I get to share this information with you. It is my pure joy to do this. If you'd like to check out more inspirational programming, you can go to my website, which is theawareshow.com, or you can reach out to me on Facebook at Lisa Gar Host. Until next time, I invite you to stay aware.